I'm Femi OK. Welcome to the stream. It is the end of the winter sports season in the Northern Hemisphere, but there are plenty of people thinking about how to make the slopes more inclusive. Can winter sports make winter sports available for people of colour? That is our conversation today on YouTube. Wow. You're already chipping in. Let me show you what you're talking about right now. This is Kathy. Hi there, Kathy. Kathy George says, if you don't have the physical abilities nor the talent to compete in any sport whatsoever, then you don't belong in this sport. Move along. This is called competition. Feisty stuff out there on YouTube. Lee Valentine has a very different perspective, and Lee is the Executive Vice President of the National Brotherhood of Skiers, and this is what he told us a little bit earlier.
When it comes to snow sports, one of the challenges that people of color encounter is finding communities of individuals who look like us when we want to go skiing or riding. Fortunately, there are organizations out there like NBS, which has been around for a long time, that have the express mission of exposing people of color to winter sports.
Exposing people of colour to winter sports. That is exactly what our excellent panel are about to do. Annette Diggs is founder and CEO of Edge Outdoors. That is an organisation working to raise the visibility of Black, Indigenous women of colour in winter sports. She joins us from Seattle. Adrienne Isaac is Director of Marketing and Communications at the US-focused National Ski Areas Association, and she joins us from Summit County, Colorado. Selema Masakela is a storyteller of action sports culture and is also a board member for Burton Snowboards. He's in Los Angeles. Hello, panel. So good to have you. It is going to be easy to tell horror stories of things that have happened to you as people of colour on the slopes. Easy. More challenging, though, to start with the positive, the best experience you have had. Annette, on the slopes, as a woman of colour, in your glory, doing your thing.
Okay, so there's many best experiences on the slopes, but since I've started Edge Outdoors, one of the most liberating and powerful experiences is bringing other women of color to the slopes, cis, trans, and queer, and watching them flourish and build their own communities and walk through the stage of self-actualization. So yeah, I would say that that is the most rewarding and best experience that I've had.
Mm-hmm. Selema?
Well, for me, snowboarding changed my life. I moved from New York City with my family to an area of Southern California that happened to revolve around skateboarding, surfing, and snowboarding just up the road. And once I tried it, it literally changed my life. The joy, the freedom of being able to be your entire being and challenging gravity and expressing yourself through sliding down a mountain. But I never got to see it in reflection. And so for many, many years, I felt like and I didn't feel welcome on the mountains. But the joy that I was getting in the mountains was something that I didn't allow people to take from me.
What does not feeling welcome on the mountains feel like? What is that? Give us an example.
It looks like being asked in the lift line, "What are you doing here?" Or
no.
I didn't know that you people do this. That's so cool." To which you reply, "What do you mean by you people?" Literally. Yes,
Yeah.
you know, there's this sort of people just constantly being shocked at your presence and being in a space that subliminally they think is just for them. So they're always just like, "Oh, you do this too?"
Maybe they're confused with the whiteness, that the white snow is for white people. Annette.
Right. So I definitely align what Selema is saying. It's like when you put foot on the snow, your presence is being examined and scrutinized. They're looking at you like, wow, what are you doing here? I know personally I've experienced microaggressions on a daily basis. For example, I'm a ski instructor for like 5 years, but when I'm out of uniform, the biases and the unconscious biases, they start coming out. For example, like, going to a chairlift, it's at full speed, but as soon as I hit the line, the chairlift automatically slows down. I'm an instructor.
It's being extra courteous, Annette, slowing down for the queen of the slopes.
I know that one too well.
All right. Yeah, and then just like being a steward of the community, being a community member of the mountain and the ski area and a representative. At times, I'm on the chairlift and I'll be sitting next to a guest, and they'll tell me I'm out of my element, but they have no clue that I work on the mountain. So. And I just have to share another story. I remember like my first day on the slopes, I was just like so excited, but I was just like going through a lot of things and dealing with a lot of microaggressions. And I was, it didn't affect, my overall experience because I was in a place that, I never thought I would imagine being. Anyway, here I am in this cafe, right? Like in the lodge, getting some coffee. And all of a sudden I heard some skiers say, "Hey, look, there's a unicorn." And I started like looking around and I was like, "Oh, there's a unicorn?"
There's a
horn
looked, growing out of my head?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know they were talking about me. I was a little bit, kind of, a little slow. But I was like looking around the room, and then I finally realized that, unicorn was being used to identify my Blackness. So that's the first time I was exposed to like verbal microaggressions on the hill or covert racism. So, yeah.
And here's the thing. Going up to the top of a mountain at 6, 7, 8, 9,000 feet and negotiating gravity in the quest of joy is already a very foreign thing for people of color or people who have been marginalized for these spaces. So being convinced that even that thing is going to be fun is work for us after we've been convinced that these are spaces we're not to be able to play in. Yeah. But then the walk from the parking lot to getting to the chairlift being more intimidating than even that makes it so that if you have that experience as she just described, when you just get into a town, why do I want to go up there and risk my life? You instantly are like, you know what? They're right. This isn't for me, and I will be taking myself back down to elevation.
Adrian, how does this change? I want to show our audience something, which is a look at how many people of colour hit the US slopes over a number of different resorts from 2021 to 2022. And so if we're breaking it down into ethnicity, 88% of people who hit the slopes in these number of resorts were white. And then down here, 5% Asian Pacific Islander, Latino or of Spanish or Latina, Spanish origin, 1.5% Black, 1.6% another race, and 0.6% Indigenous Native American. It's really disappointing to see how few people of colour feel. Could you hear my filter there? Disappointing to see that few people of colour enjoying something that's so beautiful and fun to do as a sport or just as a leisure activity. What do we do about that?
First I want to just thank my fellow panelists for sharing their stories. And I wish I could say it was the first time I've heard anecdotes like that, but it's unfortunately not. And when we look at the racial and ethnicity data of our skiers and riders, that hasn't really changed over the past 10 years. And it's showing us at the national level, even though there are regional differences, that our culture is not welcoming, that we have to do more concerted effort to make our staff and our leadership look more like what the US looks like. And, especially as we look at the younger generations coming up, the most diverse generation in US history is getting older now. And that is a huge opportunity for snow sports, but we have to do better on the inclusion and the culture side. And that starts with all of us in positions of leadership at the ski areas.
I want to bring in excuse me, Salam. I'm just going to bring in, first of all, the founder and CEO of Winter for Kids, because what he talks about is creating a new culture, a culture where everybody can go and ski or snowboard. Here he is. Here's what he told us earlier. And then, Salam, just build off the back of it immediately.
To develop a culture, you have to change behaviors. And those change behaviors should be based on values. And those values are welcoming. That's by creating a safe space. Empathy, which is acknowledging the uniqueness of everyone and their perspective. Embracing and celebrating authentic individuality. And of course, making sure that everyone feels that they have a sense of belonging.
Yes, and here's the thing: we can do all those things at the base level to make people feel welcome. But what the ski industry already does so brilliantly in the way that they make billions of dollars is they target audiences and communities and people who live thousands of miles away from a mountain, and they relentlessly bombard them with images and expressions of, if you come here to this place and have this feeling and do this thing, this will become an active part of your lifestyle. And they analyze and really, really try and find those people, and they speak to them through really, really targeted marketing, and they begin an exchange, a relationship with folks who make it their destination. And that's something that the ski industry is so brilliant at. And I'm like, well, why aren't you figuring out how to talk specifically to us and market to us? Because the biggest conversation that people like to have is like, oh, well, you know, Black people don't have money. Yes, there are barriers financially, but amongst Black and brown people, we also have an immense amount of spending and capital, and we like to have fun. But the ski industry does zero they're not figuring out their end of the problem to say, how do we speak to directly these people and get them to come here and see, to what the point that was made earlier, that we are welcoming and we want them to have this experience.
Adrian, do you want to see if you can answer that? What's happening right now?
I do.
Yeah.
Because you know what? The majority of our marketers are white. And that is something that needs to change in our industry. And it's not just, you know, finding folks from different communities. It's getting different perspectives, hiring different marketing firms, you know, getting people who understand the communities we're trying to reach out to and know how to talk. And that's where I think NSAA has the most power, is to start with the staffing and encouraging ski areas to kind of look outside that very narrow viewpoint and find different places to post jobs, bringing in, you know, people who don't look like you. It's very easy to have that unconscious bias when you're hiring. So how can we train, again, like our HR people, our GMs, to think differently and also recognize their own unconscious bias so that they can move forward in an authentic way?
And now I want you to talk about the work that you're doing, volunteering.
Yes.
But let me just go via Anthony Kwame Harrison, because he talks about who are the gatekeepers, who are the leaders here. You are one of the leaders. Here's Anthony.
Over the past 10 years, I see more Black people and people of color taking an interest in winter sports. But the main industries that surround winter sports will only value diversity, equity, and inclusion as long as it's convenient. And my fear is that without Black decision makers leading these industries, sitting at the table, holding people accountable, when it becomes inconvenient, I'm not sure it will continue to be a priority.
Ooh, a word.
Annette, have another word.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree exactly what he's saying. I think we all need to realize that the success of the ski industry is built on the exclusion and the oppression of others. We also need to recognize that, you know, when we have these white decision makers or anybody who is trying to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and sense of belonging, that it takes self-awareness. We have to be a student of ourselves and a scholar of society, and really dig in deep into why we're here today in order to understand historically excluded communities. And I believe that, you know, whenever we're trying to promote some type of programmatic effort, when we're in that ideation stage of development, we need to sit down, we need to pause, right, and ask who is in the room. Who's in the room? Do we have, you know, a Black person? Does there need to be a couple of Black people? Does there need to be people with disabilities in it? Are there women in the room? You know, are there Indigenous people in the room? And through that, we're able to make really profound and powerful escalating change within industry. But without that, we're just kind of stuck spinning our wheels. I believe that it all begins with like self-awareness, and then we're able to move forward.
On YouTube, I want to share this, and this is from the Lauren exhibit. I grew up skiing, and black diamond skier to this day. I salute you. Black diamonds are so scary. It's crazy that there are so little black people no matter what mountain I skied. My dad skied and he was born in 55 and he started skiing as a teen. Once you start as a kid, whatever hue you are, wherever you fall on these sort of ethnic spectrum, it's kind of hard not to keep going. Why is it taking us so long for this to kind of resonate around the world? There are many different places where you can ski, and it's pretty much the same around the world. Selema, do you want to help us out here?
Yeah, well, the point was made earlier. How did we get here?
Yeah.
These are spaces that were made exclusively as safe spaces for white people. In the midst of integration, literally the last bastion of safety for white people to feel like, we don't have to worry about them, was the outdoors. We saw it in adventuring and hiking. We saw it in the ocean, and we saw it in the mountains where these spaces were created. So unless we own how we got here, that necessarily isn't going to change. I think the work that is being done by people of color to create access and to build reflection, when we get to see ourselves in reflection, that is contagious. But we can only do so much, because we didn't create the problems. I have a mentoring organization that I started called Stoked 18 years ago, where we use the principles associated with skiing, surfing, skating, and snowboarding, and getting kids who are at risk to experience falling down and getting back up, and how to embrace that and who they choose to be as a person. We watch kids' lives change all the time. From these principles that make them feel brave to step out of, maybe the 4 blocks that they've been told that they're only allowed to inhabit. So I think it's again, in that marketing and then just the storytelling of what it is, it's just being leisure. There's just far much more here that the experience in the outdoors, skiing, snowboarding, etc. We're able to build better human beings and literally a better world. And until we start marketing and storytelling with that experience in that way, and then the industry taking responsibility for creating more access, outside of just the resort model. How can we put tow ropes in small hills where people and kids can go to learn for $15, $20 as opposed to trying to spend $225 for a lift ticket, which that's crazy.
So right there, you just put off so many viewers who are like, I could try this. And then you said lift ticket and $250. And they're like, okay, nope. That's a lot for trying out a sport, just to see if you like it, just for the fun.
It is, but there are organizations that are doing the work. There's a hill in Minnesota where they've done the work to work with the state to install a tow rope at a public park that happens to be adjacent to a white and a black neighborhood, and black people are able to come and become skiers and snowboarders literally for $15 a day.
Nice.
And then building that relationship, and then figuring out, okay, maybe I want to move to the mountains, maybe I want to get a job and have that lifestyle. You have Big Snow in New York, which is an indoor hill where we have a ski and snowboard culture for kids who grow up able to ski indoors, again, accessible. And then by 3 or 4 years, they're like, okay, I want to move to a mountain. I think the future of what this looks like is creating more accessibility. And the resorts, if they're playing the long game, they should be investing in the accessible ways and the affordable ways to create accessibility so that when people get capital as they get older, they're like, okay, this is where I want to go.
Adrian, I'm really interested in companies. Excuse me. You go first. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am so stoked that you mentioned Big Snow, because honestly, their business model is built for accessibility, especially in a sport with so much overhead and so many terms to learn and so many things that you need before you even buy that $200 lift ticket. And I think really just making the process easier and bundling it together and giving people kind of like this low risk first experience, that is tremendous. And also they have the most diverse staff of any ski facility in the U.S. It is really wonderful to see people thinking outside the box of what skiing and snowboarding looks like.
I want to talk about, just very briefly, the companies who are doing the work. Who's doing the work and who's maybe just doing a little bit of George Floyd washing, if I can put it that way. All right, so this is, all right, this is, that's Annette, by the way. This is Vasu, and Vasu calls out some of the work that's being done. Here he is, this is what he told us earlier.
Over the last couple of years, there has been a big movement around creating more inclusion. I have seen a lot of ups and downs from companies. A lot of companies are doing really well, either in their hiring practices or in their ambassador teams or their marketing and media. And there's also a lot of other companies that are dropping the ball. And it's really easy to see the vast difference between the companies that are doing great work and also the ones that are not.
All right.
That's my guy.
You've got two options: dropping the ball or who's doing the work. Salema, choose one.
First of all, Vasu is an incredible ambassador and ally of all marginalized groups. He also has one leg, and I have gone and hiked and skinned up a 12,000-foot mountain with him, and he has beaten me by 20 minutes on the hike. So Vasu is incredible. Nice. But there has been a lot of George Floyd washing. A lot of brands who decided, hey, you know what? We're going to get some people and we'll put them in our clothes and we'll use them to say, look, we're inclusive, but they're not engaged with them. They're not paying with them. And more importantly, they're not telling their stories and figuring out ways to create access. I'm biased. But being able to have a seat at the table that I received in the last 3 years as being an executive board member of the board of directors at Burton, we've been able to do some really great work. We've created something called Culture Shifters that is solely built in bringing people together to be able to sit in reflection, experience the sport, and figure out ways to solve for access. You're looking at a picture of Zeb Powell, who also is the picture that you have in behind you from the X Games. Yeah. He is the great black hope of snowboarding. His mantra, his whole reason for snowboarding as a professional is to make the mountains more comfortable. I'm actually in Venice right now working with him on some future plans for brand. But being able to have someone like that, where we have that visibility, someone who's iconic, to be like, oh, that guy's one of the best of the world, that draws people to see that reflection and in turn want to be able to have a piece of that experience.
I would love our audience, before we go, to experience Mecca, who is a ski instructor and he works all over the world. He didn't come with the most positive of takes, apart from towards the end. Let's have a listen.
I have not seen any real evidence of diversity or inclusion in my career, especially across Europe. No advertising, no imagery from ski schools or ski teacher associations. The only true difference was Lesotho, where I saw Africans truly being excited in wanting to learn how to do snow sports. I was teaching for free some little youths who were showing amazing talent. The world doesn't know about them.
So there's a ski resort in Lesotho, and I want to take you there. Let's check it out.
Guys, okay, hands on knees, push against the top of the boot, head up.
I've been seeing a lot of ads on YouTube, and I just thought I really want to try that. And I've never seen snow in my life, so this is it's a great experience.
That's the smile of someone who loves being on the skates, on the mountains. All right, so, oh goodness me, so much more to talk about, but for now I'm going to say Annette, Adrian, Salema, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate you, and good luck in your work and making winter sports more inclusive. I'm going to leave you with the great black hope of snowboarding, Zeb Powell. Thanks for watching. See you next time.